Okay. Dear colleagues, I'm very honored to take part of this ceremony for Orley Ashenfelter. We had agreed with Jean-Marie that I would cover Orley's career that is not related to oil economics, and Jean-Marie will deal with the latter. But essentially, we will talk about or give our personal testimonies about his work. And Orley represents many of the things we are aiming for when we choose this job. Scientific integrity and rigor, intellectual curiosity, and the quest for answers about the dynamics and mechanism of having the functioning of our societies, our economies, our policies, but also a sense of concreteness, because economic actors, whether we talk about fast food workers or one consumer, are the reality of our societies with the multiple forms of interaction between them. And when Orley described their role, the functionings of markets, etc., things become concrete, clear, almost visual, and always with a lot of humor to get the message across. All the things that make me regret that I was not a student in Princeton, because the lecture must have been fascinating, and I think you should keep on teaching. That's a good idea. I should recall how important the figure Orley is in the landscape of economic research and policy evaluation. I will not cover all the prizes and honors he has received. There are many: the Frisch Medal, the Isaac Prize in Labor Economics, the Mincer Award for Lifetime Achievement, and the fact that Orley has been the fellow of the most prestigious societies of economics, and formerly the editor of the American Economic Review, which is the most renowned journal in our profession. But if we focus on what made Orley so prominent, I cannot be exhaustive, but otherwise we would spend the whole afternoon here listening to me, which is not a great idea. But I have to talk about labor economics, of course. So Orley has been, and Robert has mentioned that, the editor of the Handbook of Labor Economics, which is the Bible in the field. And Orley's early work was offering many analyses, but in particular some analysis, for instance, of strikes and trade union growth. And he showed that this topic could be discussed using relevant data and sound econometric method to enrich the societal debate in a reasonable way. For instance, his classic paper on racial discrimination in trade unions ended a heated debate about whether unions improve the situation of African American men, and actually he showed that it was the case. So his work on union led to better understanding of the determinants and resolution of disputes, which leads me to another field, law. Often economics and law are in the same faculty or in the same department in our universities, and a lot more could be done to actually conduct more mixed research between these disciplines. The economics of law is a field that literally exploded with many applications, for instance, all the factors that influence the decision of judges. And Orley is also a father of this branch of research, as he launched the American Law and Economics Review. As I said, research can be concrete, and Orley has provided expert testimonies in numerous legal cases, for instance, in the US government versus Apple on an antitrust case in which the court held that Apple was conspiring to raise the price of e-books in violation of the famous antitrust law, the Sherman Act. I mentioned labor economics, law economics, wine economics. I could have recalled also education economics with Orley's path-breaking work on the returns to education using information on twins and original data on twins. But beyond all these domains, Orley has given us precious tools. These tools aim at what we call evidence-based policy evaluation, and they are now central to the profession. Some still see economics as political. The researcher designed a model and put his own value judgment in the model. That might be true a long time ago when we didn't have data or computers or empirical methods to test competing theories or their hypotheses. But this is broadly wrong nowadays, as economics has become more of an empirical and experimental or quasi-experimental discipline. Evaluation methods allow assessing the impact of policies in a way that is in principle neutral and provide policymakers with relevant information about whether a policy achieves its goals. Policy evaluation is one of the tight connections between Orley and Bordeaux, on top of wine economics. And where we talk about policies in development economics, health, labor economics, innovation, and all the domains that we study here. A few years ago, the direction of the University of Bordeaux suggested to organize research in a more operational way by creating research departments that gave multidisciplinary communities, that gather multidisciplinary communities around research objects. And with Jean-Marie, we have contributed to one of these departments called ECOR, which means E for evaluation, C for comportement, which is behavior in French, and O for organization. This word summarizes well the way economics has evolved, closer than ever to management and psychology, but also developing its own tools to understand human behavior and evaluate policies. The word behavior is crucial because it comes close to evaluation when you think about policy evaluation. Does a policy make people work more, retire later, do more gym, consume less wine, etc.? To understand if a policy works as the internet effect, one must create a counterfactual. That is, we must imagine the same world as the one we are living in, but without the policy that's being implemented. The difference between the actual world and the counterfactual world tell us how people have reacted to the policy, what we call a behavioral response, which in turn influences whether the policy is a success or not. One of the ways to create this counterfactual is to randomly allocate some people in a group that is affected by the reform, and other people in a group that is a comparison group. That's when economics is inspired by medicine and biology, and everyone has heard about Esther Duflo and randomized experiments. But the fact is, you cannot randomize all the time, and actually it's quite difficult to randomize properly. So Orley has suggested what is called natural experiments. For instance, one of his first papers focused on training programs and how these trainings can improve the earnings of low-skilled workers to help them escape poverty. In this case, the comparison group is not random, but is there to give you information on the time trend of the outcome of interest. That is, it captures how earnings evolve over time due to other factors like a recession or just because workers are aging. When you observe those who follow the training program before and after the program, that difference mixes two things, the effect of the program, but also these other factors like a recession. So using this control group, this comparison group, you can net out this other factor and extract the pure policy effect. And this, what we call difference in difference, has been used extensively and is what we use nowadays to assess if a policy works or not, or also if a policy is worth generalizing and spending public money on this policy. So the US is a great country for that. Why? There's an economist, another economist who put a sticker on his car that says, "I love federalism." Because in a federation, you have many states, and you can actually compare states, because some are going to introduce a policy, and the other state is not going to introduce the same policy. So you can compare states over time and perform this difference in difference, and many applications have been done on the US thanks to this federalism. And you can do that for many things, to assess the impact of changing minimum wage on employment, the impact of tax reform that are different across states, fiscal stimulus, etc., etc. So Orley's contribution is very concrete and helps us every day when assessing all sorts of policies. And himself has advised policymakers over the years, and even early in his career by serving as director of the Office of Evaluation in the US Department of Labor. A consequence of all this has been the prize in economic science in memory of Alfred Nobel, given to Orley's student David Carr that we saw on the movie, and Joshua Andris 2 years ago. And this author have further developed this natural experiment method, double difference method, and now a lot of PhD theses are based on this method, which is an interesting snowball effect. Very preciously, Orley and his disciples have challenged the profession by focusing on this quest for a counterfactual that is as close as possible to the ideal of randomized one, making policy evaluation transparent, credible, and rigorous. I hope I have given you a glimpse of Orley's powerful influence on the field, his role as a mentor to many of today's leading economists, the diversity of applications, and his chief legacy in providing fundamental tools for public policy evaluation. Just before COVID arrived, I was visiting Princeton University, and Orley had been so kind to host me in the house right in the middle of the campus. I arrived on a Sunday night. I was very intimidated, but him and Tracy made me feel very comfortable, also opening several bottles of great wine, which helped. Thanks again for that good time. And there on the kitchen table, I noticed a book that Orley had just received. It was a book about the 50 most influential economists of the century. As I flipped through the book, I saw the page devoted to Orley with a beautiful illustration and glowing text. And I think that this book says more than any award or prizes, and I felt very lucky to share a glass of wine with someone who's made history. Thank you very much.